Hello everyone, and welcome back to Autonomia, the show where we bring ideas from the libertarian left to everyday people, and foster conversation on what we believe in hopes of proving that we all have far more in common than we are trained to believe. My name is Hayward, and I am your host. As always, our intro and outro music come from a song called A Bigger Cage is Still a Prison by System Failure. If you'd like to look up this song, the band spells System, C-I-S-T-E-M, for political reasons.
There's nothing I want more than to sleep under the night sky. Hear the animals as they go about their lives. Feel the fire warm my body, feel the mud under my toes. But tonight this cell keeps me enclosed.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning back into the show. We have yet another episode coming out this week, and this one is just, quite literally, my King of Callers entry for the Lee LC show. It's pretty standard for my rhetoric. Some people seem to think maybe not so much, but this is basically the same stuff I've been saying for years now, of trying to recognize the problems in society, trying to recognize the parallels that exist between a person raised on the stories of our founders and raised on stories of fighting tyranny, and how that plays out to our modern context today. Pretty much everyone I talk to agrees that the conditions now are more egregious than those that caused us to rise up against King George. So what does that mean? How do we see the people that choose to resist? Or how do we see our own expression of devotion to this nation, to this project? And if that goes beyond the point of patriotism and circles back toward just being the same as every Brit back in the 1700s that said they wanted to stay with the crown. The people back then were adamant that the people that were fighting back were a bunch of troublemakers, a bunch of bad people who were trying to overthrow the just order of the day. We have that same dynamic now. And if you don't recognize it, you're going to repeat history, and every time we repeat it, it gets worse. We need to understand that this is a cycle in history. Tyranny is doing what tyranny does. And if we don't do our end of it and resist that tyranny, it will normalize, it will get worse, and it's been doing that for a very long time, and it'll get harder every single day you decide not to find some way to recognize the cage you're in and to push back. So, hopefully you find this little rant I have coming up interesting, and I'll tell you what, if I get a few more supporters on Patreon, maybe my audio recordings could be even a fraction as good as the level of sound quality Lee has. We'll see. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Full Power Radio is proud to present an event unlike anything in the history of radio. It's time for the King of Callers on 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. Your referee is Lee LC. Let's get it on.
He is a card-carrying, limited government anarchist. Please put your hands together for Hayward from North Stonington.
We flipped our finger to the King of England. We stole our country from the Indians. With God on our side and guns in our hand, took it for our own. Built a nation dedicated to liberty, justice and equality. Doesn't look that way to you, it doesn't look that way to me. Sickest joke I know. Listen up, man, I'll tell you who I am. Just another stupid American. You don't want to listen, you don't want to understand. So finish up your drink and go home. I come from the land of Ben Franklin, Twain and Poe, where all women, Otis Redding, Ellington, the country that I love.
This is Hayward. You are being lied to. You are being manipulated. You exist in an open-air prison that the founders that you venerate would rebel against in a heartbeat. And somewhere, deep down, you know this is true. It gets worse every year, no matter who you vote for, no matter who wins. Patriotism has been subverted and replaced. You've heard me say it before. The opposite of patriotism in the historical American context isn't treason, it's loyalism. When it came time to set aside everything that they'd known to dare to create something better, some took that step. Others clung to what they knew and the flag of their captors. Our founders had the bravery and humility to set aside the Union Jack and stand up against the empire it stood for to create something better. Our founders built on that humility to enshrine the right to resist in the very DNA of their project. A rebel's reading of the Bill of Rights leads to the idea that our founders very intentionally left that door open to protect a resistance infrastructure to take this project down if it got out of hand, a final check on the power if circumstances called for it. And only the most thoroughly broken and indoctrinated don't understand the necessity of at least some form of resistance in these dark times. How will your loyalism be remembered by your descendants who have to live with the consequences of the stands that you didn't take? History does not look kindly on the loyalists of 1776. And half of us now are out here cheering on the modern-day redcoats while they force the construction and expense of a state-backed terror facility on a community that doesn't want them, while they tell you the people trying to stop them are the terrorists. In truth, they're the ones that are closest modern-day equivalent to the rebellious and treasonous patriots of the Revolution. Rather, the loyalists are content to merely wave the symbol of that revolution, utterly drained of all meaning while they go quietly and self-righteously into the night. They tell a story of a terrorist shooting first, while the only eyewitness is dead with 57 gunshot wounds, but corporate media uncritically parrots government talking points. And the city coroner finds no gunshot residue on the hands of the so-called terrorist and said this terrorist was sitting down with their hands outstretched. We got no retractions, and the death machine grinds on. And more resistors get terrorism charges as that definition increasingly expands, and the only people willing to stand up are maligned by the media. And the public that should stand up keeps their heads down. But many of us were too busy and preoccupied with what drugs the president's scumbag son was shoving up his nose. I'm glad the corporate media can focus on what really matters. Tyranny is a disease. It won't stop at the freedom fighters who can see the cage for what it is. Your silent complicity won't save you from the monster. It may buy you time, but it will never save you. Our founders understood the necessity and righteousness of resistance tactics that today would be called terrorism, because that definition never stops expanding. But they were left no other option, and there is still time to push back before people have no options left. And those willing to stand up, we're drowning. They're after us every day, and their media keeps most of you siloed in their pre-approved mental terrariums while they hunt us down. For the sake of those that can see the walls, but more importantly, for the sake of yourselves and your children, break out of this cage and join those that have liberated their minds and see the real adversaries for what they are. Time is running out. And as the old poem says, by the time they came for me, there was nobody left to say anything.
Now the cops got tanks, cause the kids got guns. Strings, pushing pills on everyone. Cancer from the ocean, cancer from the sun. Straight to hell we go. Listen up, man, I'll tell you who I am. Just another stupid American. You don't wanna listen, you don't wanna understand. So finish up or drink and go home. Listen up, man, I'll tell you who I am. Just another stupid American.
Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast episode. This project is done on a DIY basis on extremely antiquated equipment, and if this is something you'd like to hear more of, and maybe you're feeling particularly generous, you can head on over to patreon.com/Auftonomia. That's patreon.com/AFTONOMIA. I'm still looking to figure out what kind of benefits I can offer to any of my subscribers other than my undying gratitude. But if you feel like supporting the show, it would be very helpful. I am a father of 2, husband of 1, trying to provide for my family and do whatever I can to make this world a place I don't have to apologize to those children for. I'd really appreciate any support that happens. Obviously, if you can't, I totally get it. I know how it feels to be up against the wall financially. So thank you so much for listening, and have a great day.
'Cause there's nothing I want more than to sleep under the night sky. The animals as they go about their lives. Feel the fire warm my body, feel the mud under my toes. But tonight this hell keeps me enclosed. For if we don't have our freedom, if we are captured by their iron hands, then the vision for fire, it burns so much more bright. There's no justice in the system, a bigger cage is still a prison. Well, I hope that somewhere someone breaks free tonight.